Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Quarantine series, the Quarantine Film Series. I'm your host, Kabir Sehgal. We're back at it again, coming to you live from the ATL, Atlanta, Georgia, where I've been quarantining for months. Yeah. My mom likes to watch the show, but I always say, Mom, please watch later. I need the Wi-Fi signal so we can get through this together. All right. So we started this broadcast, as you know, in earnest back in March as a way to spotlight creative individuals. A lot of my friends were musicians. All their gigs were canceled. And then soon enough, the film festivals were canceled. And many things on the creative calendar were postponed. So this is a way to, again, put the spotlight on artists, creatives, people who are making the content that provokes, entertains, and challenges us throughout the year. And so I think it's important to be a patron. So please support the artists, support the creative people that you find on this show. And if you want to be in the loop as to who's coming next and who'll be on the broadcast, subscribe to my social media channels. You know what to do. And if you want to be on the show, hit me up through like Instagram or Facebook Messenger or something. We'll try to work it out. All right. Now, a couple things. If you have questions, drop a question in the comment field. We'll try to get our guests today to opine to the questions. And let us know where you're watching from. I'm in Atlanta. Our guest today, I believe, is in Austin, Texas. And let us know, cities, states, countries, counties, municipalities, districts. Let's put it up there. We're all coming together, right? And I've learned that we have a big following in Malaysia. So all the people in Malaysia, what's up? All right. So here we go. That's the opening spiel. I want to introduce our incredible guest today, a luminary, a leading light. Those are my L words. In the space, she is the director of film at South by Southwest, responsible for the vision, programming, and execution. It's always the hardest part, the execution of the film festival. And before, she's been there for many years. Before joining South by Southwest, she had many roles, had as a exhibitor, producer, director, and she is a person of import. She made the Guardian's Film Power 100 list, so she's very powerful. And we'll ask her about all of her powers. And she serves on the Austin Film Society Advisory Board. And she's really one of the leading individuals, creative forces, and sort of friends, filmmakers who help get their projects out there, which is really a true pleasure to have her on. And I'm excited to have her. So welcome, Janet Pierson, to the Quarantine Series.
Good to be here.
Great. So
the intro.
Yeah, of course, I got to ask you, and we were talking, I associate those first moments of the quarantine with South by Southwest. So I guess the question is pretty easy. How did the quarantine affect you? And what has been the situation since?
I've never been in a real tsunami, so I don't want to kind of mislead, by being facetious about using the word, but I kind of, liken the experience we had at South by Southwest 2020 to being in a tsunami where you just felt that, we were preparing, we'd spent all year, we had an incredible program, we thought it was great. And then the sand started shifting and all of a sudden there was this disease, and was it serious and was it not, and what was our responsibility, and were we going to be an epicenter, but what about the artists? And it was really intense to live through. It happened very, very quickly in terms of everything changing from what we were expecting, and very quickly our focus shifted to, once we were canceled by the city, which was in some ways a relief not to think we were going to be the epicenter bringing the illness to the States. It became this incredible responsibility of all the people who invest in us with their talent and their time and their work. And so ever since then, it's been a real challenge to try to figure out, how to help the film, for me, specifically the filmmakers for 2020. Of course, I'm engaged with the whole company, and we're dealing with everybody who was involved with South by Southwest in all the different ways, from audience to, a lot of different ways to participate, and then planning ahead for next year.
I hear you. That tsunami is probably a good comparison. I just want to ask also, what I like to ask is, how are you maintaining creativity during the quarantine? How do you ensure it's not Groundhog Day? What does a typical day look like in the life of Janet Pierson?
I don't have any issue with the idea of Groundhog Day. It's funny. I've been at South by Southwest. This would have been my 12th year. And I've been traveling a lot, and there's always way too much work to do every day. And there's actually, the silver lining has been, it's great to work from home. It's great to have more time with my husband. It's kind of nice to be still in a way. What I was really craving though that I couldn't do was swim. I like to swim laps, and the pools were closed, and I finally figured out about 6 weeks ago. I finally found an outside pool that I can swim in, and that's been that's been great. But otherwise, it's just it's actually just been a lot of work. It's just been a lot of we're very privileged. My kids are grown. My daughter's a firefighter. My son's works at Amazon. They're grown. They're in good shape. We're not having to homeschool kids. We're I'm lucky to have a job. I'm in a comfortable house. I mean, I feel very, very privileged in this position right now. My husband is super entertaining, and so we've enjoyed that time together. And and what's been interesting is the different ways people connect. Like, I'm an extrovert, so I really like to be around a lot of people. But Zoom and whatever we're not using Zoom right now. We're using a different platform, but it's been fascinating to understand how we connect now in the ways that it works. Doesn't always work, but in some ways there's a real intimacy in the fact that everybody's home the same way. It's I find that really intriguing.
We have a question actually about your home from Roberto in Saratoga Springs. He wants to know about the books behind you. Are most of those books about film?
No, and this is my little space in our house. The rest of the house is like cleaner, and John's got it. I'm married to Janet Pierson, who's the author of Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes, which is a great film book, and he's got like a whole film shrine thing going up in another part of the house. These are kind of like old. It's a good thing you can't really see the titles. It's a very eclectic bunch of books and a lot of paperbacks, and it's sort of the messy room.
Got it.
I'd love to have it.
Yeah, cool. So tell me about the South by Southwest plans for 2021. How are you accommodating filmmakers that were in 2020, or are you?
Well, yeah, we just announced, literally in the last couple of weeks, we just announced that we'll be launching South by Southwest Online as part of 2021. It will take place, I'm going to read you from the announcement here so I get it right. It's a digital experience that'll feature conference keynotes and sessions, screenings, showcases, networking exhibitions. South by EDU Online is going to be March 9th to the 11th, and South by Southwest Online will take place March 16th to the 20th. We are opening for film submissions on October 6th through the 28th. In other years, we would have been open from late June until mid-October, but now we're opening basically for a 3-week period in October. And we invited our accepted 2020 films who hadn't already been commercially exposed to resubmit with us. We don't know the extent of the program at this point. We don't know how big it is and who will be involved, but we are looking forward to seeing what's out there.
Got it. How would you describe the aesthetic of South by Southwest? There's many film festivals, as you know, and you've got to do what works for you. We've kind of chatted before. You guys try to put together the best slate of films possible. How do you go about thinking about putting the best slate together?
We think about it from a lot of different angles. We're a multi-tiered event. We're connected to one of the greatest conferences in the world and music showcases. And so we're looking for films that will work. And we're based in Austin, Texas in March. So we're always looking for work that will work with our audience, an audience of forward thinkers, people that are interested in, cross lines of kind of everything. We happen to live in a time where there's an explosion of films, so there's always more to choose for than we have room for. We're looking for a true diversity of kind of film. So budget, style, geography, tone, the filmmaker's voice. So, we can't all have one kind of film. So yes, we show Hollywood comedies and action films. We're really happy to do that. We don't shy away from populist fare at all. We like to entertain, but we also like provocative films. We love films that are made with no money, have no production value, and just kind of have sheer talent kind of on display. So we look at everything. It's open submissions. We love films that have no connections that we've never heard of before, as well as following people's careers. And this is great if you're looking at the images on the screen. If you go to the SXSW website, we have this wonderful film alumni stories that I recommend, if you're interested, you check out, because it's a lot of filmmakers who've participated with us over the years, told their story about what they love about South by. And I think, besides the fact that people think we have a great eye for really strong films of all kinds, there's an incredible community of filmmakers that forms at our event. And that's one of the things we're most proud of. There are all these really important alliances that happen from people that meet there. But to answer your original question, we're known for kind of being a little edgy, in terms of an overall aesthetic.
Totally. Ben is asking, will music videos still be a part of South by Southwest?
Yes, for 2021, yes, there will still be a music video program. Mm-hmm.
Got it. One thing's been fascinating learning about your career. You had worn different hats throughout your career. You had your own company, Grainy Pictures. Tell me about Grainy Pictures and sort of what you did before South by Southwest.
Well, it starts earlier than that. I graduated from the San Francisco Art Institute, as you said, and immediately started working at running Canyon Cinema Co-op, which was an experimental film distribution co-op owned by filmmakers. And through that, I ended up having a contact to work at the Film Forum in New York City, which was a very formative experience for me. I was there from 81 to 86. It's still running. It's a really vibrant, important movie theater headed by Karen Cooper. And I met my husband there. His name is Janet Pierson, and he was a film guy, and we had similar interests. And he left the Film Forum shortly after we got involved with one another. But then he embarked on this extraordinary career that was really, involved with independent film in the 80s. Our first film of note that we were involved with was Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It. We actually were investors, and John was a producer's rep, and he was also involved with films like Roger and Me and Clerks and Thin Blue Line. And it's funny, I haven't talked about our history for quite a while, but there was 10 years where we were kind of, this incredible open door for filmmakers who, and actually one of the most important one, and the reason we're in Austin is Richard Linklater for Slacker. So John was a producer's rep for those films, and I was his helper and assistant and worked with him. So that's, and it had different phases to it. And it's a long story. You should read his book to get that history, or you could look at Grainy Pictures, which is now a dormant website, but kind of talks about our history a little bit, because we had the producer rep years, and then we were completion financing years under a company banner called Islet, and then Grainy Pictures. And the reason we had that title was because we didn't care that much about production value. If you look at Clerks and Go Fish, and I think there was a third film of ours that opened right at the same time, and they all were written in the New York Times. Reviews were about how grainy they all were, but how great they were. So we were like, we're going to own this. We took on the title. And then John wrote the book, which was really, incredibly interesting, and is still the definitive history of American independent film from the mid 80s to the mid 90s. And then we started a television show called Split Screen. That was a signature show for the Independent Film Channel. And it was great. And you can see it now on the Criterion Channel. After 20 years, it's available for streaming on the Criterion Channel. And it was 66 episodes of independent film in that period between 97 and 2000. The Blair Witch Project emerged out of it. It's wonderful stories by filmmakers about filmmakers. It has this incredible innocence and sweetness to it. I was the executive producer and co-creator with my husband. And later, in the 4 years that we were doing it, I started directing segments. I actually directed a segment on Miranda July, which was like in 1999, early 2000, which was sort of first national television exposure for her. And it was so clear that she was so talented then. So it's a cool show. I'm thrilled that people can have access to it.
Yeah, and speaking of some grainy pictures, we have some vintage pictures of you from that website. Let's put some of those photos up on the screen. Tell us who's in this photo. Yeah,
well, this was from John. So that's John Pierson, my husband. It's my left. And so he and that's Kevin Smith on the right. And so this was at the book launch for Spike, Mike, Slackers and Dykes, which was a book I was referring to, and it was launched at the Sundance Film Festival in I always get the years wrong. I guess 1996 at Dolly's Bookstore, and we had a book party then, and we were book signing, and so that was a beautiful moment.
We have a question coming in from England. Sarah Kent Estifer for one asking a question about what advice do you have, Janet, on finding commercial distribution for films for independent filmmakers? Do you have any quick pointers for how to go about it?
No, I don't. But I'll go back 1 second. That last photo is one of my favorite photos ever. That was from Telluride, from the Telluride Film Festival, which is a fantastic film festival. Now it's from 1983, right after we got married. And that's just an incredible moment. I love that photo. To answer the question, there are other people you could speak to about that. There are people that I'm blissfully not in the distribution world anymore. I've sort of got this luxury of being able to nurture and support talented work that we think is interesting, and we are not part of the commercial transactional part of the world right now. So there are other people that live in that space, whether they're distributors or sales agents or other filmmakers who've been through it. I think it's essential that you ask your peer group of people whose work you admire how it's working for them. But it's a hugely changing world. It's been hard for a long time. I mean, if you read John's book, you can see how hard it was even in the 90s through the 80s and 90s. It's still hard. And there are no simple answers, I guess. And I don't know if I'm rambling a little bit, but I mean, the only thing I can say is if you make something great, there are people like myself, and there's a whole network of people that are looking for work that's exciting them. So that's the good part, but I don't know in terms of actually the lucrative nature of it. That's its own animal. So
Sure. Who do you admire? Who are your mentors or heroes in your career who've kind of nurtured you along the way?
Well, I mentioned Karen Cooper, who is a huge mentor for me. She is the head of the New York Film Forum, which has been this force in independent film since the late 70s. She was amazing. And then she had a real vision and a real steadfastness and persistence in terms of discovering great work. And then my husband, my life has been hugely influenced by him. We've been married now 37 years. We worked together for a long time. He's a fascinating guy. And so he's been a profound influence. And other than that, there's just been, it's interesting because I feel so privileged to be in this world. And there are so many people I respect and admire, from the filmmakers I've had the privilege to work with to other industry and press that are part of my world. So it's a long list of people that have meant a lot to me. It's funny. It's the same. When people ask me what, like, to identify a couple of films, I'm kind of inclusive, so it's harder to come up with a couple. But okay. I mean, there've just been so many. So if I started, I'd be going on for about an hour.
No problem. We have a question from Bordeaux, France, asking about what is the film ecosystem like in Austin, Texas? Are there a lot of filmmakers who live in Austin, Texas?
Yeah, Austin's great. We originally are from New York, and we moved here partly because we got to know Austin through Richard Linklater. We were involved with Slacker, and we started going to South by Southwest early on. The film South by Southwest started as a music event in 1987, and then film and interactive were added in 1994. And we started coming then and realized we, met a lot of people that we liked quite a lot here. We were very impressed with the Austin Film Society, which is the nonprofit that Richard Linklater started to support filmmakers. It's a vibrant, fantastic organization. I love them. And so we moved here partly because of that. And there are filmmakers working at a lot of different levels here. It's not a commercial base. A lot of the filmmakers we know earn their living making commercials or branded content. They work on their independent films on the side. But, a lot of really talented people live here, and they're super nice,
Texas, nice.
Yeah. I mean, somebody once said, I'm from New York, and I love New York, and I had a great community in downtown New York in the 80s. We had an incredible community of people that we still love deeply. We still love so many people there in New York of all ages. But I think a part of a difference in Austin is there's a niceness. Mm-hmm. There's a way that people support one another.
Yeah. Ben in Dallas, Texas is asking, what restaurant are you looking forward to going to in Austin when the world opens up again?
I went and I ate outside at Uchiko a couple of weeks ago, so that was really nice. Yeah, that's a funny question. We've been actually really enjoying cooking at home. But it's interesting because I don't. We just went out, actually. I've been sitting home, since March, and we do some takeout. We live in central Austin, and so we do takeout from places like Julio's that we love and Mandola's that are kind of our local restaurants. And we've been cooking a lot, but I actually just went away last week. I went to Southern Utah, and it was really different to go outside and realize that people were kind of living semi-normal lives. I don't know how I feel about it.
Only a couple of questions here. So I also want to ask about Rio Paradise. We did have the graphic of that. Tell us a little bit about that project and your affiliation with it.
Well, that's another long topic. So when we were in split screen at the time, we came up with an episode about we found a movie theater in Fiji, and we had this sort of idea of we lived for a year in Taveuni, Fiji, and you can read. I don't know if you can still get them. John wrote a couple of articles that were in the LA Times that laid out why we were going. If they're still in the archive, that are possible to see. Maybe they're even on this website. We lived there for a year, and Steve James made a documentary about it. But he made it. He only was actually with us the last month we were there. So he was filming in June after we'd been there for a year. So it's a little. It's It's an interesting film. It's about our family. It was kind of in the early days of reality television. It feels a little bit like that. It was unusual that we as film people kind of were subjects of a film. And the film premiered at Sundance and played at South by Southwest and actually had a theatrical release. You can't stream it. You have to buy a copy. I think there's still copies on Amazon available. And if you do watch it, I did the commentary track with Steve James. And I feel actually very good about that there's a situation where Steve James had never made a film about peers before. We had a strong, tight relationship with him. And so it was an unusual experience for him to film his peers and for us to allow ourselves to be filmed. And what I learned from the experience is how narrow filmmaking is. It changed my feelings about documentaries forever. It's like right now you're seeing here, but you're not seeing what's happening on the other side of the door that's just outside the frame. So our life in Fiji was like that. The film captures what Steve was able to film or decided to film, and he was creating his own narrative about it, which was very different from what it was like to experience it as a person. So if you do watch the film, I did this audio version, whatever you call them, audio dialogue that you can get through the, you have to look around a little bit, but it still exists. And it takes you through the whole experience and breaks it down. And I recommend that to give more context.
Got it. I think the last question is going to go to Vis in Mumbai, India. She wants to know, when do you know as a filmmaker, when do you know when the idea is good enough to pursue to make it into your next film? So I guess the question is for filmmakers. So how do you know if an idea is worth pursuing or turning it into a film? And it's a very broad question. So if you want to...
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not a filmmaker, even though I've been involved with filmmakers literally all my life. I love filmmakers. I love films at work, but I don't make them. And to me, I still find it kind of magic. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't even know why films that are amazing work. Like you take a film like Krisha that we showed a number of years ago. It's a family gathering at Thanksgiving dinner. And we've seen hundreds of films where people are having a meal together. They're just boring and banal and completely uninteresting. And Krisha, within about 3 minutes, had our interest and worked and was kind of phenomenal. But what's that X factor of the talent that the director, Trey Schultz, made it incredible where other people weren't able to. So it's a good question. And I'm not the person to be able to answer it.
We answered a lot of questions already, so I really appreciate you for sharing some wisdom and more about South by Southwest. You see all the tickers at the bottom where you can follow her on Twitter, Instagram, the South by Southwest website, and see, we're going to do it one more time. There it is again on the crawl. So please follow Janet on Twitter, Instagram, and also check out the South by Southwest film site to get updated on what's happening at the incredible film festival that she leads. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate your time, Janet.
Well, super. Thanks. And listen, because since we are presenting an online event for 2021, that means that everybody from all over the world can potentially tune in. So look to the website to find out how you get access and how that works, because it would be great to have people to be able to engage from all over.
Absolutely. That sounds great. It's going to be a worldwide event.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Sounds great. All right. That's our show today. Everyone, keep it on my social media, subscribe to get notified on who's coming next. Make sure to take care of the art, because the art will take care of you, take care of all of us. And everyone stay safe, stay warm. Bye, everyone.